Celebration Bowl, hey, we're less than an hour away. Celebration Bowl between Jackson State and NC Central. The Eagles, straight out of Durham, North Carolina, playing in the Celebration Bowl. That's where Chris is down here in Atlanta. This is where Culture State Saturday. We're celebrating the state of North Carolina, and we got the biggest game in college football going on today. It's Jackson State, NC Central Celebration Bowl. Bringing another black college national championship back to the state of North Carolina, Chris. A&T's done it multiple times. Let's see if Central could do it today.
4 times A&T has done it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. The only time the MEAC has lost in this game, we've had 6 Celebration Bowls.
Yep.
Only time the MEAC has lost was when Central lost in 2016. So Central themselves, they have to make sure that they're doing it for their bragging rights and their own stability mentally, because they don't want to be the only team in the MEAC in North Carolina also to lose in this game.
Yeah.
So
it's a big thing.
Putting that out.
As we mentioned earlier at the top of the show, they can bookend their season on national television like they did against A&T to start the year back in the first weekend in September. National TV down at Bank of America Stadium in an NFL stadium, and they could do it, capping it off today, this afternoon, noon kickoff right here on the Fan. You can cap it off with a national championship, HBCU championship, right here to end your season in another NFL stadium. I mentioned Bank of America Stadium, Chris.
Yep.
I'd like to point out, you mentioned earlier during our Raise Up Top 5 how Carolina Panthers beat down the Seattle Seahawks. Well, just a couple days ago at PNC Arena, Carolina Hurricanes beat down the Seattle Kraken. That's right. The state of North Carolina owns the city of Seattle. Get your coffee out of here. I don't care. You can keep your music. We'll listen to the North Carolina stuff. I don't care about your Pearl Jam. I want some Little Brother. Okay? Now, coming up tomorrow, you can listen to the game right here on 99.9 The Fan. Panthers take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, 5 o'clock puck drop tomorrow at PNC Arena. Canes take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. So guess what? Steel City's trying to come into our state, Chris. Guess what? Keep your Permane brothers. I'm eating barbecue. Carolina is going to take down the Steel City. We're going to own Seattle. We're going to own Pittsburgh. We're going to do that too because the Panthers are taking down the Steelers because Steelers stink. Let's be real. They're not a very good team. And plus the way the Panthers are playing right now, their momentum's going upward for them. Steelers opposite direction. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy game because Mike Tomlin always seems to have his team prepared. They might be losing games, but it's always going to be a tough one. They're not getting really blown out in a lot of games.
It's still going to be a tough game,
but it's still going to be a tough
for the
one.
Panthers.
It's still going to be a tough one. But anyway, state of North Carolina is going to own the Steel City. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I say that with Steel City blood running through these veins, okay? My grandfather was a steel worker in the city of Pittsburgh. And you know what, Chris? I still got to ride for the state of North Carolina. That's all I'm going to say.
And I commend you for that because you are a Steelers fan, and this is the one time where you could jump off the bandwagon and be like, I'm just going to go with what I've been going with my entire life. And you're not doing that. But like we were talking about with the Panthers, this team is going to come in prepared to play the Panthers. I don't think they're going to get, the Steelers aren't going to get blown out, but the Panthers have something to play for. The Steelers have a lot, there's not a lot for them to play for when it comes down to their division and all that. So what does that do to the psyche of their players? For the Carolina Panthers, they already know they control their destiny. If they win out, they have 4 more games. If they win out, they are firmly in the playoffs because they would have won the NFC South.
Yeah.
And these are all very much so winnable games. Tomorrow is a winnable game for sure. And then the Lions game, even though the Lions are hot, Lions don't travel well. And that is very much so a winnable game. And then you finish the year on the road against 2 teams you've already beaten at home.
Yeah.
And, the only team that has something to play for at that point really is Tampa Bay. And, I don't know if the Saints really have much to play for.
No.
In Week 18, which is weird to say Week 18, by the way.
Yeah, I
know. So that's definitely something to look out for the Carolina Panthers. So tomorrow will be a very interesting game. And after we leave Atlanta, we're going to head back up to North Carolina and get in place for that game for Sunday.
I'm curious to see how the team finishes. I know Ovius and Giglio on the OG mentioned this earlier this week because if, let's say, we saw this last year with the Raiders. Remember, they fired their head coach, had Rich Bisaccia come in, who was their special teams coordinator, take over as the interim head coach, and guess what? They made the playoffs. Now, the Raiders didn't hire him as their head coach, and now look where they are right now. They stink. They're terrible, all right? I'm wondering if Panthers do win the division, because, again, they're 4-4 under Steve Wilks, and a team, again, that's after trading their best player in Christian McCaffrey. That's starting a third quarterback under Steve Wilks. They're still 4-4, okay? If they continue to trend upwards, I mean, Tepper's got a massive decision to make. He has a big-time decision to make, because obviously the guys in the locker room love him. The guys in the locker room love Steve Wilks. They want to play for him. They fully understand, hey, 2018, this dude did not get a fair shake out in Arizona because he didn't. I don't know, man. I'm just saying, even if they don't win the division, but they're right there at the end, I think you just got to give it to this guy, because otherwise, who are you going to get? You can find yourself an offensive play caller that can come in and run your offense and stuff. Because here's the thing that I think it's overblown so often when it comes to the NFL is that, I have to have an offensive mind or defensive mind, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that all doesn't always work out for people, okay? Sometimes you just need someone who can coach a really good team. It's all you need to do, and trust their coordinators to do what they can do. I mean, if you look at Sean McDermott up in Buffalo, right? Quote-unquote defensive guy, former guy for the Carolina Panthers, quote-unquote defensive guy. Well, guess what? His offensive coordinator is now the head coach at the Giants, Brian Daboll. Well, guess who stepped in? Ken Dorsey, offensive play caller. I mean, it doesn't hurt that you have Josh Allen, but that offense is doing just fine under a quote-unquote defensive head coach. So my thing is, I think that gets overblown so much, and I think owners probably look into it way too much because everyone wants to copy whatever teams are doing well. Look, just find someone who can lead these guys properly and get them prepared during the week to win on Sunday. And that's what Steve Wilks is doing with the Panthers. So isn't that what you want in a head coach?
And yeah, well, you're right, and that's what David Tepper has to look at, right? Because I mean, you made a few good points there as far as this is one of those copycat leagues, and people are going to go after what's hot, right? And I think there's not much to pick from when you talk about that same tree that Shanahan and McVay and LaFleur. All of those guys came from, and then you have Daboll, who already has, unless you're going to put your eyes on Ken Dorsey and make him the head coach, but do you want to do that after only 1 year of him being a offensive coordinator for the Bills? So, something that David Tepper has to look at is, what are these guys responding to? Let's give Matt Rule credit in the fact that the roster he helped build, even though he was horrible, has a horrible record at quarterback, the rest of the roster is not a bad roster. I've been saying this for the last couple of years. This is, I would say, a top half of the league roster that the Carolina Panthers already have. Are there some holes? Of course. No roster is perfect. But it's the top half of the league roster. And you're seeing somebody as a coach take advantage of that top half of the league roster. And honestly, if it weren't for a really bad call at Atlanta, and let's just go ahead and wipe away that Bengals game, even though it's going to be there. They're really 5-3, and you can also say the Rams game. They played on Sunday. He just found out he got the job on Monday.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're going to probably lose that, but still, I would think if certain things went differently. Steve Wilks is over 500 right now.
Yeah.
And he's right at 500 in his time with the Carolina Panthers over the last 8 weeks. So you have to look at that. You have to take that into consideration. And this stretch is better than any stretch Matt Rule ever put together. Better than any stretch that Matt Rule has ever put together with the Carolina Panthers. So that's something that David Tepper has to take into account. And I think he will have to. But remember, the Rooney Rule is still in place. So he can't just take the interim tag off of Steve Wilks.
Yeah.
He has to still go out there and interview other minority candidates, other white candidates, and things like that for the job. But, you just know that in your head, Steve Wilks has to have the leg up.
Oh, yeah, easily. I mean, he has to. And here's something that can't be overlooked. We see it right down the road here in Raleigh with Rob Brindamore. He was an assistant for a long time under Bill Peters and a couple others, but he didn't want to just be an NHL head coach. He wanted to coach the Canes. I want to be the head coach of the Hurricanes. I don't want to go to Columbus. I don't want to go out to Calgary or any of these other places. No, I want to coach the Canes. Steve Wilks wants to coach the Panthers. It's his home area. He was with his staff back in 2015 when they went to the Super Bowl. He wants to be in the building with this team coaching them. That has to matter. In my opinion, it does, because if there are people who are qualified in your building that want to do a job, you have to give them the opportunity. That's how I view it. If someone is qualified to do something, they are currently in your building, don't go outside. Go to the person that wants to be there because it means more to them. Obviously, I'm sure Arizona was an opportunity, obviously, for him to be a head coach. But you know what? Where does he want to be? He wants to be in Charlotte. That has to matter. That has to matter.
And I think it is going to matter at the end of the day. But I think David Tepper had to learn a few lessons himself, right? He came in and he just kind of caught at the very tail end of Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera, the best coach in Panthers history,
easily.
But when you're there for so long, sometimes the message can get stale. And his staff have been raided by the Bills and other places. Mm-hmm. So, it just kind of ran out on Ron Rivera. And, of course, bad luck with the injuries with Cam Newton. But with this guy in particular, Steve Wilks, he's bringing back what the Panthers were and what they stood for. Ron Rivera understood that.
Yep.
David Tepper, I don't think, understood that at first. He was trying to mold the Panthers into what he saw it as, into what he wanted it to be. And sometimes you just kind of have to let it be what it is. And this is going to be a tradition like the Steelers.
Yeah.
What are the Steelers without having a great defense? You can't come to the Steelers and just all of a sudden make them the Chiefs and no defense, right? The Steelers have to have a great defense. The Carolina Panthers have to have a defense and a running game. And that's what the identity is. That's what they have to be. And if you want to add a great prolific passing game to that, that's fine. But those other things cannot falter at all. And I think that's what David Tepper is starting to realize here in Carolina.
It's amazing how late in the season everyone talks about, this team can run the ball and play defense. Oh, look, they're winning games. Imagine that. It always comes back to that at the end of the year. Playing defense, running the football. Imagine that. Panthers in action tomorrow against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Noon coverage starts right here on 99.9 The Fan, 1 o'clock kickoff. You can listen to it again right here on 99.9 The Fan. Coming up next, though, NFL player, currently on injured reserve, though, because of his torn triceps, Brandon Parker, who played at A&T. We're going to talk to him next here on Culture State.